Everybody knows Donald Trump. The skyscrapers, the luxury hotels, the casinos, the private jet. His name wasn't just on buildings. For years, it became a symbol of success. If you saw the word Trump on the side of a tower, you assumed one thing: this guy must be incredibly rich. And that's exactly why this story is so fascinating. Because behind all the gold, all the headlines, and all the billion-dollar projects was a man who kept finding himself in the same place, running out of money, not once, not twice, again and again. How does that even happen? How can someone build one of the most recognizable business empires in America and still end up standing on the edge of financial disaster? Was he a genius who simply took bigger risks than everyone else? Was he a reckless businessman who borrowed too much? Or is there something about the way he built his empire that most people still don't understand? Today, we're going to tell that story. Not the political story, not the media story, the business story. Because once you understand how Donald Trump made money, you'll also understand why he came so close to losing everything. And by the end of this episode, you may look at Trump's entire career very differently. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine it's the early 1990s. You're standing on the boardwalk in Atlantic City. The ocean is behind you. Bright lights are everywhere. Music is blasting from every casino. People are dressed up. Tour buses keep arriving. Money seems to be flowing in every direction. Then you look up and you see one name: Trump. It's on the buildings. It's on the signs. It's on the billboards. At that moment, Donald Trump wasn't just another businessman. He was becoming a celebrity. He was on magazine covers. He was on television. People wanted to know what he bought, where he lived, what he flew, and who he met. To millions of Americans, success had a face, and that face was Donald Trump. Now here's the strange part. If someone had walked up to you back then and said, "One day, people are going to say Trump went bankrupt 6 times," you probably would have laughed. No way. Look around. The buildings are full. The casinos are packed. The newspapers can't stop talking about him. How could someone who looked this successful end up becoming the most famous businessman ever associated with bankruptcy? That's exactly why this story is so interesting. Even today, if you ask people, how many times did Donald Trump go bankrupt? Most people answer immediately: 6. They don't even have to think about it. It's become part of American culture. People repeat it like it's common knowledge. But then something strange happens. Donald Trump hears that question, and he smiles. Then he says the same sentence he's been saying for years: "I never personally went bankrupt." Not once. Every interview, every debate, every campaign rally. Someone says, "You went bankrupt 6 times." Trump answers, "Wrong, my companies did. I never did." So, who's telling the truth? The reporters or Donald Trump? At first, it sounds like somebody has to be lying, because both statements can't be true, can they? Actually, they can. And that's why millions of people still argue about it today. The answer isn't black and white. It's much more interesting than that. Everybody remembers the number 6, but almost nobody remembers the story behind the number. Those 6 bankruptcies didn't happen overnight. They didn't happen in the same year, and they definitely didn't happen because Donald Trump woke up one morning and suddenly ran out of money. The story is much more complicated than that. Let's go back to 1991. At the time, Donald Trump had already built an image that almost nobody else in America had. He wasn't just selling buildings anymore. He was selling Donald Trump. His name was becoming a brand. If a new hotel opened with the Trump name on it, people paid attention. If he bought a casino, it made national news. If he appeared on television, millions watched. To the public, it looked like everything he touched turned into gold. But behind the cameras, the numbers were starting to tell a very different story. Trump had borrowed billions of dollars, not millions, billions. That sounds crazy today. But back then, banks loved lending him money. Why? Because real estate was booming, Atlantic City was booming, and Donald Trump looked like a winner. Banks love winners. When somebody keeps winning, everyone wants to lend them more money. Think about it. If a guy has already built luxury hotels, beautiful office towers, and one successful project after another, why wouldn't you believe his next project would also succeed? That's exactly what happened. The more successful Trump looked, the easier it became to borrow even more money. And that's where the cycle began. Borrow more, build bigger, borrow even more, build even bigger. For a while, it worked. In fact, it worked so well that people thought Trump had found a secret formula for getting rich. But every formula has one weakness. It only works until something changes. And for Donald Trump, that change came faster than anyone expected. The first crack appeared in Atlantic City. The casino business wasn't growing as fast as everyone had predicted. Competition became tougher. Customers stopped spending as freely. Meanwhile, the loan payments never stopped. Every month, the banks still wanted their money. The interest still had to be paid. Employees still needed paychecks. The lights still had to stay on. A casino costs an incredible amount of money to operate. It doesn't matter whether people are winning or losing. The bills keep coming. And once those bills become bigger than the cash coming in, you're in trouble. That's exactly what happened to the Trump Taj Mahal. From the outside, it looked magnificent. Inside, the business was drowning in debt. Finally, there wasn't enough cash to keep up with the payments. So the company filed for a Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Then another Trump company did the same, then another, and another. Eventually, the number reached 6. That's the number everyone remembers. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. Donald Trump himself never disappeared. He didn't lose his house. He didn't disappear from television. He didn't vanish from business. In fact, he kept making deals. He kept giving interviews. He kept building his personal brand. That's why this story became so confusing. People looked at the headlines and said, Trump went bankrupt. Trump looked back and said, no, I didn't. So who was right? Believe it or not, both were looking at the same story from two completely different angles. And that leads us to an even bigger question. If Donald Trump looked so successful, if banks kept lending him billions, if investors kept believing in him, why was he constantly running out of cash? Because looking rich and actually having money are two completely different things. Let's ask a question that doesn't make any sense. How can a man own skyscrapers, luxury hotels, casinos, a private jet, a yacht, and still be worried about money? It sounds impossible. Most people think being rich means having a lot of cash. It doesn't. Those are two completely different things. Imagine someone owns a $5 million mansion. From the outside, they look wealthy. But what if they only have $2,000 in the bank? They still have to pay the mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance, the staff, the electricity, the repairs. The house makes them look rich. It doesn't pay the bills. Donald Trump's business worked the same way. People saw the buildings. Trump saw the monthly payments. Every hotel had employees. Every casino had thousands of workers. Every elevator needed maintenance. Every air conditioning system had to run 24 hours a day. Every light bill had to be paid. Every bank wanted its interest on time. None of those bills cared how famous Donald Trump was. They only cared whether the money showed up. And every single morning, before a single customer walked through the front door, those expenses were already waiting. That's why cash became everything. Not reputation, not newspaper headlines, cash. Because cash keeps a business alive. A beautiful building can't pay its own electric bill. A famous name can't pay employees on Friday. Only cash can do that. This is where many people misunderstand Trump's business. They look at $1 billion building and think, he's got $1 billion? No, a building worth $1 billion doesn't mean there's $1 billion sitting in a bank account. Most of that value is tied up in the property itself. To turn that value into cash, you usually have to borrow against it or sell it. And Donald Trump hated selling. He believed something else. If a building was valuable, why sell it? Borrow against it. Keep the building. Use the bank's money. Then buy something even bigger. That strategy made him grow incredibly fast. One building became two. Two became five. Five became hotels. Hotels became casinos. Casinos became office towers. From the outside, it looked like unstoppable success. But every new purchase came with another payment, another loan, another interest bill, another deadline. It's like spinning plates. One plate is easy, 5 plates take skill, 20 plates, one mistake, and everything starts falling. By the late 1980s, Donald Trump wasn't spinning one plate anymore. He was spinning dozens. The bigger his empire became, the more cash it needed just to keep moving. Then something happened that almost nobody saw coming. The economy slowed down. Real estate prices softened. Atlantic City wasn't making as much money as before. Suddenly, the cash coming in wasn't growing as fast as the bills going out. That's when pressure started building. Not because Trump stopped owning expensive things, but because expensive things are incredibly expensive to keep. And here's the strange part. Instead of slowing down, Donald Trump did the exact opposite. He kept thinking bigger, bigger buildings, bigger casinos, bigger deals. Why? Because he believed going bigger was the way out, and that decision changed everything. By the late 1980s, Donald Trump already had what most people dream of: luxury buildings, famous hotels, millions of dollars. His name was becoming one of the most recognizable brands in America. Most businessmen would have stopped for a moment, taken a breath, protected what they had. Donald Trump didn't. He wanted something bigger, a lot bigger. Have you ever noticed something about Trump? He rarely talks about being second. He likes saying words like the biggest, the best, the most beautiful, the greatest. That wasn't just campaign language. He'd been talking like that long before politics. It was the way he did business. To Trump, being successful wasn't enough. People had to know you were successful. If another developer built a luxury hotel, Trump wanted one even taller. If another casino had 5,000 slot machines, Trump wanted 6,000. If someone spent $200 million, he wanted to spend even more. That mindset helped build his brand. But it also created a dangerous habit. Every new project had to be bigger than the last one, and bigger projects needed bigger loans. Here's something interesting. Donald Trump didn't build his empire using piles of cash sitting in a bank account. He built it using borrowed money, lots of it. He once joked, "If you owe the bank $1,000, you have a problem. If you owe the bank $1 billion, the bank has a problem." People laughed, but there was truth behind the joke. Borrowing money wasn't something Trump feared. It was part of his strategy. He believed debt could make him richer. And to be fair, for a long time, it worked. Let's say you own one building worth $100 million. A bank might let you borrow against it. Now you use that borrowed money to buy another building. When property prices go up, both buildings become more valuable. Now you can borrow again, then buy another one, then another. That's called leverage. In real estate, leverage can make fortunes. It can also destroy them, because leverage only works when everything keeps going up. The moment prices stop rising, everything changes. Now imagine doing that, not with one building, not with two, but with hotels, casinos, office towers, airlines, a yacht, and one of the largest private residences in America. Every one of them costs money, every single day. The bigger your empire becomes, the hungrier it becomes. And Trump's empire was always hungry. Then came the project that perfectly captured how he thought: the Trump Taj Mahal. When Trump announced it, people couldn't believe the numbers. It wasn't supposed to be just another casino. It was supposed to be the casino, the largest, the most luxurious, the most expensive. Everything had to be over the top. More marble, more chandeliers, more restaurants, more hotel rooms, more everything. Reporters loved it. The public loved it. It looked like another brilliant Trump success. But behind the scenes, some bankers were getting nervous. They weren't worried about the building. The building was beautiful. They were worried about something else: the amount of money it had borrowed. One banker later described it like this: the Taj Mahal wasn't built to make money, it was built to make a statement. That's a huge difference, because a business has one job: generate enough cash to pay its bills. If it can't, it doesn't matter how beautiful it is. And that's exactly what would happen. The very project that was supposed to prove Donald Trump was untouchable would become the first domino to fall. When Donald Trump announced the Trump Taj Mahal, he didn't call it just another casino. He called it the eighth wonder of the world. That wasn't just marketing. That's exactly how he wanted people to see it. Everything about the Taj Mahal was designed to make people say one word: wow. It had thousands of slot machines, luxury hotel rooms, crystal chandeliers, marble everywhere. The biggest gaming floor Atlantic City had ever seen. The message was simple: if you wanted the best casino in America, this was it. Opening day was a huge success. Television cameras were everywhere. Celebrities showed up. Thousands of people walked through the front doors. From the outside, it looked like another Donald Trump victory. But inside the accounting office, the mood was very different. The casino had cost far more than most people realized. To build something that spectacular, Trump borrowed enormous amounts of money. And those loans came with something dangerous: high interest payments. Every single month, before the casino made $1 in profit, millions of dollars had to be paid to lenders. That's a difficult business model, because the casino didn't just have to be popular, it had to make extraordinary amounts of money every single month. And that's exactly where reality hit. The casino attracted huge crowds, but huge crowds don't always mean huge profits. People won money. Operating costs were massive. Competition in Atlantic City kept getting stronger. The numbers simply didn't work the way everyone had hoped. Within about a year, the Taj Mahal was already struggling to keep up with its debt. Eventually, the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. To many Americans, this was shocking. How could the biggest casino in the country run into financial trouble so quickly? The answer wasn't that people stopped coming. The answer was much simpler. The casino wasn't crushed by a lack of customers. It was crushed by the weight of its debt. That became one of the biggest lessons of Donald Trump's career. A business can be beautiful, it can be famous, it can even be full of customers, but if it owes too much money, that success can disappear surprisingly fast. And the Taj Mahal wasn't the end of the story. in many ways, it was just the beginning. Because Donald Trump had another problem. His biggest competitor was no longer another casino owner. It was Donald Trump himself. Have you ever carried a heavy backpack? At first, it doesn't seem that bad. You throw in a few books, a laptop, a water bottle, maybe a jacket, everything feels fine. Then you keep adding things. Another book, another laptop, another bottle. You can still walk, but every step gets a little harder. Eventually, the backpack isn't the problem, it's the weight. That's exactly what was happening to Donald Trump's business empire. People admired the buildings, banks approved the loans, the newspapers celebrated the success. But very few people stopped to ask one simple question: how much weight can one empire really carry? By the early 1990s, Trump owed billions of dollars, not because he was buying small projects, because everything he built was enormous. Luxury hotels, office towers, casinos, an airline, a yacht, even New York's famous Plaza Hotel. Each project made headlines. Each project looked like another victory, but every victory came with another loan, and every loan came with another payment. Every month, the interest had to be paid. Whether business was booming or slowing down, the bills never stopped. Now, think about running just one hotel. That's already difficult. Now, imagine running several, then add casinos, office buildings, an airline, hundreds, sometimes thousands of employees, electricity, maintenance, insurance, taxes, payroll, loan payments. Every single day, money had to go out. And when the economy began slowing down, the money coming in slowed down first. That's when debt becomes dangerous. Debt can help build an empire, but too much debt can slowly become the empire itself. It's like climbing a mountain using borrowed equipment. As long as you're moving upward, everything feels secure. But the moment you lose your footing, every rope begins pulling against you. That's exactly where Donald Trump found himself. One lender wanted payment, another demanded new guarantees, others simply wanted answers. At the same time, newspapers began asking questions the public had never asked before. Was Donald Trump really as wealthy as everyone believed? Or had his empire been growing on borrowed money all along? For the first time in years, confidence started to disappear. And in real estate, confidence is almost as valuable as cash. Once lenders become nervous, borrowing becomes harder. When borrowing becomes harder, cash becomes tighter. And when cash becomes tight, even great businesses can begin to fall apart. Trump later admitted those years were some of the hardest of his entire career. He wasn't chasing bigger deals anymore. He wasn't trying to build another skyscraper. He was simply trying to hold everything together. And when you look back, that's really what this story has been about. It wasn't one bad investment. It wasn't one failed casino. It wasn't one expensive hotel. It was years of building bigger, borrowing more, and believing the next project would solve the problems created by the last one. For a long time, that strategy made Donald Trump look unstoppable, but eventually, the weight became too much. By the early 1990s, millions of Americans believed the story was over. The empire looked ready to collapse. The headlines grew darker, the pressure kept building, and it seemed like only one question remained. Would Donald Trump lose everything? That's where our story pauses, because what happened next would surprise almost everyone, and it would change Donald Trump's future forever. For years, Donald Trump seemed unstoppable. Every new building made headlines. Every new project looked bigger than the last. To millions of Americans, he wasn't just another real estate developer. He was the symbol of success itself. If you saw the Trump name, you assumed one thing: he was winning. But behind that image, a very different story was unfolding. The bigger the empire became, the more money it needed just to keep moving. Every hotel, every casino, every office tower, every new purchase added another layer of pressure for years. That strategy worked. As long as money was easy to borrow, the empire kept growing. But eventually, growth stopped covering the cost. Debt began catching up. Confidence began disappearing. And once confidence starts to disappear, everything changes. Looking back today, it's easy to say Trump borrowed too much. It's easy to say he expanded too fast. But during the 1980s, very few people believed the ride would ever end. That's what made the collapse so shocking. It didn't happen overnight. It happened one loan, one project, and one risky decision at a time. By the early 1990s, Donald Trump wasn't fighting to become richer anymore. He was fighting to survive. To the public, it looked like the end. Newspapers questioned his fortune. Investors questioned his future. Business partners began losing confidence. Many people believed they were watching one of the biggest business failures in American history. And honestly, they had every reason to believe that, because from the outside, there seemed to be only one possible ending. The empire would collapse. Donald Trump would lose everything. His business career would be over. But history had other plans. At the very moment when almost everyone believed the story had reached its ending, something happened behind closed doors. No television cameras, no reporters, no public announcements, just a series of meetings that would quietly change Donald Trump's future. What was decided in those rooms? Why did one of America's biggest business failures never become the end of Donald Trump? That's where our story pauses. Because the next chapter of Donald Trump's life wasn't about building skyscrapers. It wasn't about opening casinos. It was about survival. And one decision would change everything. Episode 2 begins there. Thank you for watching. See you next time.